Ms Barr issued a partial apology, but it wasn't enough for ABC, which called her comments abhorrent, repugnant and inconsistent with our values.
Well, to discuss this more with me is Chris Roebuck, visiting professor at Cass Business School. Thanks very much, Chris, for joining us here on the programme. Just tell us a little bit about the kind of implications that a decision like this to can a show that's doing quite well.
Well, it's effectively a situation where ABC were making a risk versus reward calculation, which is we're pulling somebody in, we know with this particular individual there's a bit of a risk, but if we look at the figures there is some form of reward. And it was 25 million viewers, first 5 episodes $8.2 million I think, and actually there was a premium on the advertising around her show. You see, but having said that though, that calculation has now been completely altered by what she has done in terms of her potential value going forward, which is something clearly that ABC has considered in terms of finance, but there's also the brand issue in terms of the ABC brand. Are we prepared to work with somebody who has effectively pretty much blown a hole in our values? And therefore, how does that apply to our advertisers? Would that pull from the show? And also our employees. You know, if we let somebody get away with this sort of thing just because they're making us money, what message does that send to our employees about whether we stand for our own values or not? Indeed, because in this particular case, it does show that ABC stood by its values as opposed to the kind of revenue that a star like Roseanne was bringing in. Yeah, and the consequences of not standing by your values might not be immediate, but they can be quite detrimental long term. If you flip it over to another situation, Bell Pottinger and their South African arm, blowing a hole in the values by doing things they shouldn't do in South Africa, brought down a global PR company. And therefore, now I think what's happening with the power of social media and the exposure that organisations are having through the conduct of their leaders on a day-to-day basis, CEOs are being much, much more careful about what becomes public and what doesn't become public. And we're looking at the actual tweet that she sent out, and there were a series of tweets. This wasn't just an isolated incident, and really just goes to show the impact that social media has, and whether we'll be seeing more and more of this type of thing. You know, with social media, nothing is really hidden. Well, nothing is hidden at all. And in this case, she was warned on a number of occasions after the new series began that there had been some tweets that ABC were not happy about. But this clearly was over the red line. But one of the things I say to sort of chief executives and leaders around the world is that do not forget that everybody has a mobile phone, and an employee, no matter how lowly, if you do something that is against the company's values, is wrong in any way, shape or form, be it illegal or immoral, that can be on social media within minutes, can go viral. Even if she did delete it, even if straight away. Well, this is the problem with social media. If you delete it straight away, somebody, somewhere, will have a copy. And, you know, it also goes to show that sometimes stars think they're bigger than the organisation and the values of the organisation, certainly in this case. But interestingly, you see, that's not just about the media, though. If you look at what happens in financial services organisations and other organisations where there are what I would call big producers in terms of they bring in a lot of money, then traditionally there has been a level of tolerance that a little bit of misbehaviour by people like this can be tolerated because of the money they're bringing in. But now with social media, it's quite clear that the red lines are actually much, much firmer than they used to be, because the exposure of leaders tolerating people who go over that red line is less. And there's another danger as well. There's all sorts of historic research and evidence that suggests that if you have a red line and you let somebody go over it and you don't pull them back and they don't suffer consequences, other people start thinking, well, hang on, maybe I should go over the red line as well. And before you know where you are, there's loads of people who are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Now, in this case, this is just a tweet. But if you extend that out to organisations where, for example, people are dealing with money, where people are dealing with safety, you know, cutting corners, we go to Gulf of Mexico, etc., etc. So, you know, these red lines are not just about TV celebrities. These are about sticking to the values that the organisation holds dear that underpin what it stands for.
Indeed, and the lessons that we learn from it.
Indeed.
Chris, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts here on the programme with us.